Good evening. Hope everyone enjoyed their dinner, or I know some are still enjoying. It's an honor to be here tonight as we celebrate 100 years since the birth of one of Tennessee's greatest sons, Senator Howard H. Baker Jr. Senator Baker was one of the best of us. His principled, respectful, and humble leadership is a model for all of us today. He stood for thoughtful, grounded service, statesmanship, and above all, a sense of duty. The kind of duty that compels you to answer the call when the president needs you. And that's exactly what Senator Baker did when President Ronald Reagan called in 1987, asking him to serve as White House Chief of Staff. Howard Baker did not hesitate. He answered the call, bringing a calm leadership to a turbulent time and reminding everyone that good governance depends upon good people. I like to joke that I had somewhat of a similar experience when President Clinton called and asked me to consider running for Congress. The funny part is, unfortunately, I sent him to voicemail. But like Senator Baker, when the presidents call, even if you have to call them back, you answer. Baker showed us that leadership isn't about scoring points. It's about finding common ground. It's about treating people with respect, even when you disagree. It's about making government work for the people, not the other way around. Tonight, as we honored Howard Baker's centennial, we're really celebrating the best of what public service can be. His legacy reminds us that integrity, civility still matter, and that one person answering the call at the right time or returning it really makes a difference. Thank you for being here, and thank you for helping keep the legacy alive. I'm excited about our program that we have for you this evening. Senator Lamar Alexander needs little introduction in a room like this. He was a close friend and prodigy of Howard Baker, someone who carried forward the Baker spirit of civility, bipartisanship, and service to Tennessee and to the nation. Over the course of his remarkable career, he served as governor to the great state of Tennessee, United States Secretary of Education, president of the University of Tennessee, and served as a United States Senator. Like Howard Baker, he always believed that real leadership is about bringing people together to get things done. Joining Senator Alexander on stage is Baker School sophomore Charlie Oleda. Charlie is a fourth generation VAW from Clarksville, Tennessee, and his inaugural recipient of the Bill and Fran Powers Scholarship. His involvement on campus as a Baker ambassador, a member of the Sports Analytics Club, and serves as a peer mentor for the Institute of American Civics. Please join me in welcoming Senator Lamar Alexander and Charlie Oleda to the stage.
You ready?
I'm ready. Are you here?
I'm here.
I'm over here then.
Well, Senator Alexander, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'm appreciative of you giving me this opportunity to talk with you. And I'm going to start with the most controversial question first. Are you ready?
I'm probably ready.
In 2 weeks, the University of Tennessee hosts your alma mater, the Vanderbilt Commodores, in Neyland Stadium. Who are you cheering for? And I might note the very nice gentleman who just introduced you is listening.
Well, you want the short answer or the long answer?
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Short answer is I'm going to watch it on television.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. So
I'm seriously. I grew up I grew up in Maryville, taking the White Star Line's bus to Shields Watkins Stadium to watch Johnny Major's quick kick, and I'd sell programs early so I could do that. Then I went to Vanderbilt College. Then I was president of the University of Tennessee, and one of my major problems was the faculty, or some people were afraid I was going to put the Vanderbilt offense in when I came to UT. Then I'm on the Vanderbilt Board of Trust now, so I want both teams to do well, and I'm going to watch it on television.
Well, that was a perfect.
Thank you for the question, Charlie.
Yeah. That was a perfect segue. So you talked about growing up in Maryville and in East Tennessee specifically.
Yeah.
So what about growing up in Tennessee, or the state of Tennessee in general, contributes to producing such outstanding leaders such as Senator Baker and yourself?
Well, I'll give you two answers to that. One, I think it's an advantage to grow up in a small town. I mean, when I was born in Maryville, it was 5,600 people, and if my parents didn't know where I was, someone else knew where I was, and would call my actual parents and tell them. I was encouraged to do whatever I could do, and so I graduated from high school. So far as I knew, I could do anything. That was the feeling I had. I think Howard probably had the same experience. He grew up in Huntsville, and he went to Macaulay School. The other thing about Tennessee is, maybe we'll get into it in this discussion, one of Howard Baker's legacies, maybe his most important, is Tennessee's two-party system. Because I was inspired to be a part of politics because Howard was building 60 years ago in 1966 a two-party system. I'd worked for a judge in Louisiana, John Minor Wisdom, who was a Republican in Louisiana when there were 1,500 Republicans in a state of 3.8 million people, and Huey Long was the governor. And he believed that one-party leadership led to mediocrity and occasional corruption. And so in the mid-'60s, a lot of us were really excited about Howard Baker challenging the one-party system we had because East Tennessee was being left out, Memphis was being left out, the Democrats in Middle Tennessee were running everything, and we wanted to change that. And then for 40 years, we've had, to get back to your question, we've had competition between talented men and women on both sides, whether they were Gore or Frist or Corker or Sasser. And I was thinking today, if you have a one-party system, it's kind of like having a football season where every game is UT versus New Mexico State. I mean, you know who's going to win. Not that good of a game. Not as many people will come if that was the schedule. And the reason people want to play in the Southeastern Conference is so they can compete against the best. Well, that was the case we had in Tennessee because of Howard Baker. For about 40 or 50 years, we went from a one-party system to a very competitive two-party system. And Dean Wanamaker has done some studies that show that from 85 to 95, Tennessee grew more rapidly in family incomes than any other southern state. Basically, what she found out in her statistics. So Howard gave us 40 or 50 years of two-party competition, which really helped our state, attracted a lot of talented young people like you, Charlie, who I hope will get interested in public life and showed us what can happen when you have competitive politics and it attracts talented people. And when they win, why, they do a pretty good job. All my answers won't be that long.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to knock on wood since you said that we're going to win tomorrow. I don't want you to jinx it.
I think you'll win tomorrow.
So, was there any advice that Senator Baker gave to you specifically that impacted your views on political life and leadership?
A lot. Remember that the other fellow might be right. Now, back then he said other fellow. You don't say that today. Other person. But he practiced that. And another was be an eloquent listener. You'll think about that. That means that what somebody is saying to you may not be what you're hearing may not be what they're saying. So you have to listen very carefully to what they're saying. Like when I was walking across the state wearing a red and black shirt, my county Republican chairman up in Washington County told me, he said, a lot of people up here think that shirt looks pretty stupid. What he was saying was that he thought the shirt looked pretty stupid. So I needed to be an eloquent listener to hear what he had to say. Senator Baker, that was two things. A lot of the other things he did was by example. He was smart. I'll give you an example in 1980, President Reagan suddenly won over Jimmy Carter, and it swept a whole bunch of Republican senators into office and put them in the majority and made Howard the Republican majority leader. No one was more surprised by that than the Democratic majority leader, Robert Byrd of Virginia, who had this big palatial office just outside the Senate floor, and the Republican leader had 2 rooms. The Democrats hadn't been very generous to the Republicans during that period. So what does Howard do about that? He goes to see Senator Byrd, and what's the first thing he says to him? He says, Senator Byrd, I wonder if you would mind keeping your office and I'll keep mine. Well, of course, Byrd was shocked by that. He said, well, Howard, of course, if that's what you want to do. And then Howard said, and second, I'll never know the Senate rules as well as you do. So let's make a deal. I won't surprise you if you won't surprise me. And Byrd said, let me think about it. And he agreed the next day to do it. And for the next 4 years, they ran the Senate more successfully than it's been run ever since. But part of it was Senator Baker's skill in understanding Senator Byrd, reaching out to him, developing a relationship to him, and recognizing that he was entitled to some stature as well.
Wow. That was church right there. So, like you said, the phrase, the other person might be right, that saying is plastered all over the Baker School. Senator Baker was known for his civility and willingness to compromise. What lessons from his leadership do you think could help revive a spirit of cooperation in public life today?
It's not that hard. It's not that hard. I watched him, learned from him. If another senator called him, he would take the call immediately, even though he had another senator in his office. He would go to another senator's fundraiser. He would go to another senator's state. He would listen to a senator's idea, no matter how goofy it might be. He would show respect for the other person's idea. He and Joy had lots of Senate couples to their home in Huntsville for the weekend, so they get to know each other. And if you spend time, just like whether you're on a football team or in a marriage or whatever relationship you have, if you get to know one another and have a little trust, then maybe you'll find something you agree on. And when you find something you agree on, you can work on it together. It's almost that simple. Now, it's harder today because of this thing that forces everything to the extremes. But I wasn't in the Senate that long ago, and I was able to work with President Obama, whose liberal views I disagreed with, and President Trump, whose behavior I disagreed with. But I got big things done with both of them because I treated their office with respect and worked with them. You can still do it. It's just, people just have to work at it.
I wanted to take notes with a legal pad, but they vetoed me bringing that up here. So your career, like Senator Baker's, spreads a wide range of roles. Are there any particular qualities that you think you share with him or develop because of his mentorship? And do you think that helped you thrive in those different positions?
Well, one was to learn how to make a speech. In 1966, I saw Howard speak on the courthouse steps in Granger County. And he was just shouting at the top of his voice. And there are all these men mostly standing around out in the courtyard. They were whittling and chewing and spitting and not paying any attention to him. But it was sort of a ritual. If he had stopped speaking, they would have thought he didn't know what he was doing. And I thought, I'll never be able to do that. But I was after a while. Learned how to do it. And then I had another lesson, which came from Alex Haley, who wrote Roots. He was in the back of an audience one time when I was governor, and I finished a speech, and he came up and said, "May I make a suggestion?" And I said, "Well, sure." He said, "If when you begin to speak, you would say, instead of making a speech, let me tell you a story, someone might actually listen to what you have to say." So learning to make a speech and communicate is something I learned from Howard Baker. It's very important. I mean, if you're in public life, you've got to figure out what to do, figure out a strategy for it, and then you got to persuade at least half the people you're right. If you can't write a declarative sentence and make a persuasive speech, you're not going to do very well.
Awesome. So looking back, what position pushed you the farthest outside of your comfort zones, and what did you learn from that challenge?
Being president of the University of Tennessee. People, I have enormous respect for Randy and Dondi and John. And the people ask me, so what's the hardest job you ever had? Being governor, cabinet member, senator, all these things, or president of the university. And I said, obviously, you've never been president of a university. You wouldn't ask a dumb question like that. But I'm more of a Moses, let's go this way type guy. And universities don't operate quite that way. Governor Kane of New Jersey became president of Drew University. I think he did a good job, but he said that he found that the faculty regards a directive from the president of the university as a request to form a committee to study the question. So it caused me I wasn't accustomed to that kind of thing. I was visited by the president of the faculty senate my first month. He said, we're concerned about you. I said, whoa, already? He said, yes, we think you think process, that result is more important than process. I said, well, I am result oriented. He said, we think process is more important than the result. And I said, okay, I'll have to learn that. So that didn't fit me as well as the other jobs did. I had to learn it.
Yeah, I was not expecting you to say that. Thought you were going to say.
Trying to be honest with you,
So, your new book is titled "The Education of a Senator: From JFK to Trump," and education obviously has been very central to your focus in public life. Why has it been such an important priority to you?
Well, first, my parents. My mother had the first preschool education program in Maryville. And when she came there in the early 40s, there wasn't preschool education. And she had, over 35 years, she taught maybe 1,200 kids, 3, 4, and 5 years old. She had waiting lists of people who wanted to be at Mrs. Alexander's. I would call it institution of lower learning, but she had nowhere else to put me, so I had 5 years a head start to get started. After World War II, my dad ran for the school board with a group of others on a ticket with the goal of making the Maryville schools superior public schools, and they did that, and they still are. And so I grew up in an environment where education was valued and important. And then when I became governor and I was trying to figure out what to do, by 1978, we were the third poorest state in family incomes. People forget that because we've been going up since then. And first I thought, well, that means recruiting jobs. And then the next thing was changing some banking laws and some other things. And then I realized we're going to have to grow our own jobs. And to grow our own jobs, we've got to have better schools and better colleges and better universities. So my whole focus for the last 4 or 5 years of my time there was trying to work with Randy McNally, the lieutenant governor, who's here tonight, and Victor Ashe and others who were around then. And we tried to set a higher standard for Tennessee in education, which the university has. This university certainly has done. And so I learned about it growing up, and then I saw how important it was to move the state. So that's what made it important to me.
So, Senator Alexander, I'm going to leave you with this question. What can young leaders today learn from your and Howard Baker's approach to leading and finding common ground?
Well, the first thing is decide to be involved in public life. I like to tell the story of Bill Frist, from Nashville. He came by to see me in 1994. I was getting ready to run for president. He had never even voted. He was 42 years old. And he said, I'm going to run for the Senate. I said, oh? So why would you give up being one of the world's 2 or 3 top heart and lung transplant surgeons to run for the Senate? He said, well, today I can cut a heart out in Chattanooga, put it in an igloo freezer with some ice, and make sure I get back to Vanderbilt Hospital in 4 hours, do an 8-hour operation, and a year later I might meet someone on the street who thanks me for saving his or her life. If I'm a senator, maybe I can save 1 million lives. He was elected. He became majority leader. He worked with George W. Bush to create PEPFAR, which invested $100 million in saving 25 or 26 million people who were afflicted with HIV/AIDS. He couldn't have done that as a private citizen. Bill Haslam has got a lot of brains, a lot of friends, a lot of resources. He's been mayor, he's been governor. He'll tell the Baker School students, I was surprised when I left public office how much more I could do in public office than I could in private office as a private citizen. So I think what you learn from Senator Baker, what I learned and what I think you, Charlie, and other students can learn is that sometime during your life, if you really want to help the most people, if you really want to change what you see in the newspapers, if you really want to keep our republic from falling apart, get yourself elected to something, whether it's county mayor, whether it's school board, whether it's United States senator, whether it's whatever, or go to work for somebody who has been elected and do that for a little while. You don't have to go to Washington. You could do that here, and you don't have to do it your whole life. But the lesson I got from Howard Baker was that, A, it's worth doing, B, you can do it, and then I learned from him a lot about how to do it.
Senator Alexander, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator, we certainly miss you and the type of leader you have always conducted yourself. Charlie, wow. So you guys don't know this. So earlier today in our board meeting, there was 3 great students who came in and gave, we'd ask them questions and they were telling a little bit about their time in the Baker School and what it meant to them. Charlie, I think you'll be a senator someday, so we'll hopefully get to call you a senator. You got an incredible career ahead of you. Or president, absolutely. Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Charlie, for your thoughtful reflections that reminds of how Howard Baker's example continues to shape seasoned leaders and the next generation of public servants. Now we turn to a very special part of tonight's celebration, the presentation of the inaugural Howard H. Baker Jr. Award for Public Service. We have a short video to tell you about the origin of this award.
We have a board at the Baker School that is full of people who worked with Senator Baker, knew him very well. They really wanted to celebrate his 100th birthday by finding the next generation of leaders who carry his values. And so they brought up the idea. We thought it was a great one.
We wanted to recognize people in the rising generation of leaders who, whether they knew it or not, were pursuing public service as Senator Baker pursued it. With a commitment to civil discourse, a decent respect for differing points of view, the courage to take a stand regardless of political consequences, and the ability to find consensus on even the most contentious issues.
What made Senator Baker so special was that everyone who spoke with him felt like he listened, understood, and accommodated their point of view. So what we were trying to do is find people in today's climate where conciliation and compromise are so very rare, people who still have the courage to do that work and really highlight them through the Baker Award. And we've summarized it with 3 things. The first is confidence in America's institutions. The second thing is finding common ground, finding the things that can bring us together and not separate us. He was so good at that in Congress. And then the third thing is his famous phrase, "The other fellow might be right." Intellectual humility and a willingness to change your mind is a hallmark of leadership. It's not a sign of weakness. So those 3 values together defined the criteria for the award. Part of our mission here is to build an ambassadorship for Baker and for his values. So our students are all ambassadors for that. And when they leave the walls of the Baker School, we hope that they go out into their communities and carry those values, perpetuate them forward. And we hope the same thing is true for the Baker Award winners. We want people all over the country who know who Senator Baker was, understand the significance of his story, and are willing to take those values and live them forward.
Good evening, everyone. As students, we are inspired every day by the legacy of Senator Baker and by the example of those who have dedicated their lives to the public good. Senator Baker's belief in civility, collaboration, and service guides the work that we do here at the Baker School. My name is Maggie Howard, and I am a Chancellor's Honors student, Tocqueville Scholar, studying public affairs with a concentration in health policy here at the Baker School. And from day one, this community has helped me understand how policy impacts people's lives across every corner of our state and beyond, and has given me opportunities to see what meaningful public service looks like up close. I experienced this firsthand over the summer when I interned for the city of Goodlettsville through UT's Institute for Public Service Municipal Technical Advisory Service. I spent my time working in the city manager's office, where I was entrusted with the launch of Project 072, a citywide effort to increase accessibility to government services and transparency within the government. Through that project, I created an interactive public dashboard and launched a monthly local art exhibition in City Hall. I also spent time shadowing each department head and saw how passionate and knowledgeable each of them were about the work done better to serve their community. Shortly after I returned to school, the city completed Rachel's Garden, a fully accessible playground inspired by Rachel West, the daughter of a retired fire captain whose wheelchair kept her sidelined on traditional playgrounds. In this project, the fire department led the fundraising, the Parks and Recreation Department planned its development, all to better connect the city by ensuring that all children have the opportunity to play. To me, Rachel's Garden perfectly reflects the collaboration and leadership that I witnessed in Goodlettsville. My time working for the city this summer showed me something that I believed but hadn't yet seen, which is that government isn't about politics or winners, but about building communities that care for and support each other. This experience reminds me of the kind of leadership that Senator Baker modeled: thoughtful, collaborative, and focused on solving problems instead of scoring points. It showed me that public service isn't just about policy, but about people and building trust through accessibility, transparency, and creativity. Those same qualities are embodied in our inaugural recipient of the Howard H. Baker Jr. Award for Public Service, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt. Seeing Mayor Holt's work on maps for a $1.1 billion transparency-driven plan that made clear how each dollar would be used to improve the city showed me how powerful, clear, and accessible communication from the government can be. That idea stands out to me after spending the summer focused on making local government more transparent and easier for people to connect with. Mayor Holt's impact extends well beyond Oklahoma City, and through his leadership, he has brought mayors from across the nation together around shared values of civic responsibility and unity. Most notably, he recently presented a bipartisan declaration against political violence at the United States Conference of Mayors, which was then signed by over 230 mayors representing communities from all across the United States. Mayor Holt has also shown that public service means putting people above partisanship, never letting a political divide stop him from standing up for what he knows is right. Mayor Holt's One OKC message reflects his belief that a city can thrive only when we set aside the things that divide us and find a common purpose, an idea that aligns deeply with the Baker legacy. Mayor Holt will be joining us next semester when he delivers the Baker Memorial Lecture on February 2nd, so please save that date. And until then, we have a short video to help you get to know our inaugural recipient of the Baker Award for Public Service.
I'm David Holt. I'm the mayor of Oklahoma City. I was elected to this position in 2018. Previous to that, I was the state senator for part of Oklahoma City. There was a time in my life where I lived in D.C. I served in the White House for President George W. Bush and served in the Speaker's office. So I've kind of been at every level of government, but I think it's fair to say I enjoy City Hall most of all because this is where you really make your greatest impact. I'm currently the president of the nation's mayors, and we gathered in Oklahoma City, and 50 of us stood at the Oklahoma City National Memorial, which is where the deadliest act of political violence in living history occurred. And we signed the Oklahoma City Declaration, focused on some of these core democratic principles and behaviors that I think Senator Baker absolutely epitomized. And, we talk about pluralism, we talk about compromise, we talk about persuasion instead of political violence. We talk about civility. We talk about avoiding dehumanization and dehumanizing rhetoric. We talk about truth and disabusing false information, even when it comes from people we agree with. Finally, we say that we are humans first, Americans second, and partisans last. Senator Baker stood for civility. He stood for bringing people together who maybe had different political views, but finding some kind of common purpose and a way that they could move forward together. To be mentioned in the same breath of somebody who obviously modeled really near perfect public servant behavior for decades is an incredible honor. It's overwhelming, and I'm very grateful. Politics can be fun. Public service can be fun. Winning championships and celebrating with your city can be fun. But this is ultimately a serious business. You shouldn't take yourself seriously, but you need to take your job seriously. And too often today, politics is viewed as almost tantamount to professional wrestling. It's like an entertainment option. But the problem with that is that people's real lives are at stake. And this is actually a very serious business. My dad was a school teacher. My mom was a social worker. I have always been most attracted to career opportunities that allow me to leave the world a better place. I've worked at every level of government, sometimes as a staffer, sometimes as an elected official. I really have enjoyed this life, and I'm very grateful for it. And certainly here in Oklahoma City, it's pretty obvious that I've gotten to be a part of some really, really special community-changing initiatives that have made Oklahoma City a better place to live for people at all socioeconomic levels from all backgrounds, and that's been really rewarding for me.
As you could tell, Maggie did an incredible job. I think we're in really good hands for the future, and I know that Marianne and the entire team at the Baker School is preparing some of the greatest and brightest minds, and I am so proud to be a part of what each of them are doing, because I think our country is going to be in a much better place than we are today. Well, we're near the end of our evening. As we close tonight, this celebration, it's only fitting to hear from the person leading the school that carries forward Senator Baker's legacy. Under the leadership of Marianne Wanamaker, the Baker School is preparing the next generation of skilled public problem-solving students, grounded in the legacy of Howard Baker. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Thank you, Heath, and thank you to Senator Alexander. Both of those men are people who, when I called them at some point and said, I need you to help me. They both did it with such willingness and grace. And in both of their cases, probably before I deserved it and before the Baker School deserved it. And so I just want to thank you for believing in us and trusting that this could happen. Having people like that in your corner helps you get other people in your corner. And I'm just really, really grateful to them. I want to close this evening with a bunch of thank yous. No surprise there. First, I want to thank the Baker Award Committee. Tom Griscom, Pat Butler, and John Tolsma helped us identify Mayor Holt. And again, if you can be available on February 2nd to hear his memorial lecture on campus, I hope you'll be able to do that. I want to express a ton of gratitude to Senator Baker's children and to his grandchildren who are here tonight. They have allowed us to help them steward the legacy of the greatest Tennessean, no offense to anyone else in this room. And I'm just deeply grateful. This would be a lot harder. It'd be harder to build a school of public policy and public affairs without a true north. And you've allowed your dad to be our true north, and I'm really grateful for that. We have partied so hard around the senator's 100th birthday. I just want to remind folks, if you're in town this weekend, there's an exhibition of his work at the Knoxville Museum of Art that I would encourage you to join. On Wednesday, we had an event in Nashville with Baker Donaldson to celebrate his birthday. We held an event yesterday on campus on U.S.-Japan relations to celebrate. We're going to celebrate tomorrow at the Baker School from 11 to 2 at the tailgate if you want to come. And then his absolute favorite activity, UT football. So if you're going to the game tomorrow, you're there in his honor. And so think of him, please. I want to acknowledge our sponsors tonight, Core Civic, LeBlanc Financial Alliance, PYA, First Horizon, Regions, E-Tech, UT Battelle, Pinnacle Financial Partners, Stones River Group, and the Honorable Mrs. Thomas Varlin and Georgia Varlin-Mann. Thank you all for supporting us. Charlie and Maggie responded to a random email from me in about August saying, "Hi, I want you to be part of the Baker Gala," and they have been willing participants, enthusiastic participants this whole time. And I saw Charlie's mom in Nashville on Wednesday, and she was like, "Are you sure you want him to interview Senator Alexander?" I was like, I've never been sure of anything in my whole life. So they did a great job, and so thank you, Charlie and Maggie, for doing that. If you haven't figured it out already, the Baker School has an incredible team, incredible staff, a great faculty, and I'm really grateful to them. And to be honest with you, Courtney Hernandez, wherever she is, leads us all every single day, and she's the best. So Courtney. And I just want to close tonight by reflecting just a little bit on what it means to carry the Howard Baker name forward. I think primarily the thing that for all of us in this room is that it's our responsibility to model the civic values that he held dear. And I have to remind myself of that most frequently in a middle school basketball game when I'm sure that I'm right and the ref is wrong. And I have to remember, you know what, he might be right. But I want you to know that we at the Baker School spend all of our time really with 19 to 24-year-olds. And they actually have the ingredients to save this country. They have the values, they naturally have the values that the senator had. They listen to each other, they enjoy pitching a big tent and inviting others to be under it. They like disagreeing respectfully and still being friends at the end of the argument. My generation isn't going to save this country, and if you're older than 30, your generation isn't going to save it either. And they are our future. And I appreciate that every single one of you is here tonight because in some way you're here because you believe in them. And so I want us to celebrate the senator's 100th birthday by, in a way, passing the baton to Charlie and Maggie and to their colleagues and fellow students at the Baker School who will save us if we will let them. And thank you for being here tonight.